You know what's weird about being stuck financially? It's not usually one big catastrophic decision. It's not the car you bought 3 years ago, or that vacation you took last summer, or even that embarrassing impulse purchase you made on a Tuesday night when you were feeling low. It's quieter than that. It's the small things you do every single day without thinking. The tiny choices that feel completely harmless in the moment. The habits that seem so innocent, so reasonable, that you'd never even call them problems. And yet years go by, and you're still in the same place, still anxious about money, still wondering why it feels like everyone else figured something out that you didn't. Today, I want to talk about those quiet habits, the ones that don't feel dramatic enough to fix, but subtle enough to keep you trapped for years without you even realizing it. Because here's the thing, most people aren't failing because they're lazy or reckless. They're stuck because they're doing things that feel responsible, feel normal, feel fine, but are slowly, quietly working against them. Let's start with the most invisible one, waiting for clarity before you act. This sounds responsible, right? Like, of course you should wait until you fully understand investing before you start. Of course you should research every option before opening that savings account. Of course you should wait until you have more money before you get serious about your finances. But here's what actually happens. You tell yourself you'll start investing once you understand the stock market. So you watch a video, then another, then you read an article, then you get confused about index funds versus ETFs. Then you hear someone mention tax-advantaged accounts, and now you're spiraling because you don't even know what a Roth IRA is, and maybe you should figure that out first. And weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and the entire time you feel like you're being responsible, you're learning. You're researching, you're not jumping into something blindly, but you're not moving either. This is one of the quietest traps because it disguises itself as wisdom. It feels like you're being careful. But what you're actually doing is letting perfectionism freeze you in place while compound interest, the most powerful financial tool you have, passes you by. The truth? You don't need to understand everything. You need to understand enough to take the first step. And then the second. You learn by doing, not by waiting until you feel ready, because you'll never feel fully ready. That moment doesn't come. Here's another one that nobody talks about. Lifestyle matching. This isn't keeping up with the Joneses. That's too obvious. Lifestyle matching is more subtle. It's when you unconsciously adjust your spending to match the people around you, not to impress them, but just to feel normal. Let me give you an example. You get a new job. Suddenly you're working with people who get lunch out every day. And at first you bring your lunch from home because that's what you've always done. But then you start joining them once a week, then twice a week. Then it just becomes what you do because that's what everyone does. Or you move to a new city where rent is higher, so you think, okay, I'll adjust. Everyone here pays this much. This is just what it costs to live here. So you take the apartment that's $200 more than you wanted to spend because that's the baseline. That's normal. Or your friends start going to nicer restaurants, or taking weekend trips, or upgrading their phones every year. And you don't even want to keep up, but slowly, without deciding to, you do. Because it feels weirder not to. This is lifestyle matching. And it's dangerous because it doesn't feel like a choice. It just feels like life. But here's what's really happening. Your environment is quietly rewriting your baseline. What used to feel like a lot of money now feels normal. What used to feel like a lot of money now feels normal. What used to feel like a splurge now feels standard. And your spending creeps up not because you're being reckless, but because you're just participating. The problem is your income might go up over time, but if your lifestyle rises at the same rate or faster, you never actually get ahead. You just get stuck at a higher cost of living. And this is why people who make $150,000 a year can feel just as financially stressed as people making $50,000. The numbers change. The pressure doesn't. Then there's this one, and I think it might be the most insidious, emotional spending as self-care. We've all been taught that self-care is important, right? And it is. But somewhere along the way, self-care became code for spending money. Bad day at work, treat yourself. Stressful week. You deserve something nice, feeling burnt out. Buy that thing you've been looking at, and I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy your money. I'm not saying you should live like a monk and deny yourself every small pleasure. But when spending becomes your primary emotional regulation tool, you're in trouble. Because here's the thing, that dopamine hit you get from buying something. It's real, it works, for about 20 minutes, maybe a day. Then it fades, and you're back where you started, except now you're $40 or $100 or $300 lighter and the stress is still there. The real issue is that emotional spending creates a cycle. You feel bad, you spend to feel better. The spending creates financial stress. The financial stress makes you feel bad, so you spend again. And the worst part, it feels like you're taking care of yourself. It feels like you're being kind to yourself. So you don't even see it as a problem. But real self-care, the kind that actually helps, doesn't drain your bank account. It might be going for a walk, calling a friend, taking a nap, setting a boundary at work, saying no to something you don't want to do. Those things don't feel as immediately satisfying as buying something, but they also don't leave you more stressed 3 days later when you check your account. Here's one that feels responsible but isn't: optimizing for the wrong things. You spend an hour researching which savings account has the highest interest rate, comparing 4.5% to 4.3%, trying to squeeze out every basis point. Meanwhile, you're losing hundreds of dollars a month to subscriptions you forgot about. Or you're paying interest on a credit card balance because you haven't prioritized paying it off. Or you're leaving thousands of dollars in employer match on the table because you haven't signed up for your 401k yet. This is what I call majoring in the minors. It's focusing on tiny optimizations while ignoring the big levers that actually move the needle. And it feels productive. It feels like you're being smart with money. But you're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. The truth is, the big stuff matters way more than the small stuff. Getting out of high-interest debt will transform your finances more than finding the perfect savings account. Investing consistently, even in a basic index fund, will build more wealth than obsessing over individual stock picks. Negotiating your salary will do more for you than cutting out coffee. But the big stuff is hard. It's uncomfortable. It requires confrontation or discipline or facing something you've been avoiding. So instead, we optimize the small stuff because it's easier, and it lets us feel like we're doing something without actually changing anything. And then there's this, the illusion of income. This one's tricky because it's tied to hope. You tell yourself you'll start saving once you make more money. You'll start investing once you get that promotion. You'll pay off debt once you get that raise. But here's what actually happens. You get the raise, and for a week, maybe two, you feel rich. You feel like finally, you have breathing room. And then your lifestyle expands to fill it. You upgrade your car because now you can afford the payment. You move to a better apartment because you deserve it. You start eating out more because you're making good money now. Why not? And 6 months later, you're in the exact same position you were before the raise. Still living paycheck to paycheck. Still stressed. Still waiting for the next raise to fix things. This is called the hedonic treadmill, and it's one of the most exhausting traps in personal finance. Because the problem was never your income, it was your habits. And if you don't change the habits, more money just means a more expensive version of the same stress. The people who actually get ahead, they're the ones who treat raises and bonuses like they don't exist. They take that extra money and immediately funnel it somewhere intentional: savings, investments, debt payoff, before their brain has a chance to recalibrate what normal spending feels like. It's not glamorous, but it works. So what do you do about all this? First, you have to recognize that these habits are habits. They're not personality flaws. They're not signs that you're broken or doomed. They're just patterns you've fallen into, probably because they made sense at some point or because everyone around you does the same thing. But now that you see them, you can change them. Start small. Pick one of these habits and decide to interrupt it. Not fix it perfectly, just interrupt it. If you're stuck in analysis paralysis, set a timer. Give yourself 1 hour to research, then make a decision and act. Open the account. Set up the automatic transfer. Start with $20 a month if that's all you can do. The point is movement. If your lifestyle matching, get intentional about your environment. Unfollow accounts that make you feel like you need more. Spend time with people who aren't constantly upgrading. Create space between yourself and the comparison trap. If you're emotionally spending, build a list of free or cheap things that actually make you feel better. Not in theory, in practice. Test them, see what works. Then when you're stressed, pull from that list instead of your wallet. If you're majoring in the minors, write down the 3 biggest financial levers in your life right now: debt, savings rate, investing, then focus on those. Ignore everything else until those are handled. And if you're waiting for more income to save your financial life, stop. Decide that you'll build the habits now with what you have, because habits scale. Income doesn't fix bad habits. It just makes them more expensive. Here's what I want you to understand. Being stuck financially doesn't mean you're doing everything wrong. It usually means you're doing a lot of things almost right. You're close. You're trying. You're just caught in patterns that are working against you so quietly you didn't even notice. But now you notice. And that's the whole game, awareness first, then adjustment, then progress. You don't have to fix everything today. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be a little more intentional than you were yesterday. Because financial freedom isn't built in one dramatic moment. It's built in 1,000 small decisions that feel insignificant at the time, but compound into something real. So start there, start small, start now, you've got this.